What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I am back with another episode of What If Naruto Was Teleported to Another. And if you did enjoy this video, please like for the next part. And if you're new to my channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions with the twist. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 6. This is a day that will record your future as you go. A powerful and invincible force will take control of these winds of change and you will find yourself moving with them. Through trials and fears, you will find yourself subject to the pain and consequences of this force, and all the strength it carries with it. But through this, you will bare your teeth and find something new. Powerful bonds to form in a force like you've never seen unfold before you. This day is the day of your lucky meeting. Okay, stop it. That's enough. I wanted fortune telling, not sleight of hand, nonsense of fate. And what the hell do you mean by lucky day? The black-haired man yelled at her friend as she shuffled the cards. The girl in the orange dress took out some cards and looked at the boy with a playful and exasperated look. Look, no matter how many times I do it again, your luck is the same. She showed him a card of a man who danced in the sun with a shower of gold coins, and she says you're in luck today. What's the problem? Guys shouldn't be happy that you're lucky, huh? The boy in his underwear leaned back at the table they were sitting at, crossing his arms and thinking about everything that had happened to him that day. How lucky, today was the worst day of my life. I fell in ditches, my wallet fell and I lost my money. The girl was expressionless at her friend's behavior and her loose clothes, choice of clothes. She finished the sentence when he finally realized what had happened to her wardrobe. Damn it, not again. How much longer does this have to go on? She gathered up her clothes and put them back on while her companions laughed at her distress at her tendency to throw away their clothes. See, your assumptions suck, my day sucks. Oh, shut up, big baby, the brown-haired girl said as she took another sip from her cup of juice. From his position at the bar, Makarov couldn't help but smile at everyone's amusement and enthusiasm. Macau and Wakaba were discussing and laughing about his performance at the last job. And Gray was yelling at Kana that something had gone wrong with his divining. He laughed and took another sip of his drink from his mug. He set down his cup and let out a satisfied sigh at how good everything was. He raised his head to see a shadow approaching from the wide-opening guild door. The other guild members near the door saw the figure approaching. When he finally reached the center of the dining room, he looked at the analysis. This is the place Rob Ojason told me about. She looked at her feet with regret and a slight joy. I guess I finally made it. Gray looked at the girl who had just arrived at the guild with a curious look. The girl had strong, vibrant scarlet hair that was inches from her shoulders. She had a white patch to cover her right eye. She was wearing a tattered, horribly dirty and torn dress. She had bandages wrapped around her right arm and left leg to cover the cuts she had received. And on her left shoulder was a sleeping bag which she filled with food and water during the journey. The girl looked around until she saw a dwarf man sitting at the counter. He was very short, a few inches shorter than her. He had many wrinkles and gray to white hair in his mustache and hair. He was dressed as a jester, like she just got back from a kid's birthday party. And behind him was a long wooden stick that ended in a whorl at the top. He felt he knew who he was and decided to ask him. Sorry, she said nervously as she approached the old man, yielding to his gaze. Why are you Maki? Shrieks, a crow perched on a huge pile of rubble and looked around. Crushed rocks and wood covered the entire surface of the island. More crows and seagulls alighted in the crowded space as they began to peck at the crushed corpses of the rubble. The carcasses were torn apart by the beaks of birds in search of sustenance. The raven shook his head to see a tasty untouched carcass near a rock. He flew over and picked up the blonde carcass, hoping to get some meat. Other birds followed suit and began eyeing the little body. They thought they were close to getting there until the body suddenly woke up. Get out of me, birds. We will see you alive and feast you with your feathers. All the birds fluttered as the blonde boy jumped up and chased away the feathered mice. The boy straightened up and stumbled as blood rushed to his head. He shook his head and regained his sight, looking around to see nothing but rubble as far as the eye could see. Hello, is anyone there? He screamed as he cupped his ruin and covered his mouth with his hands. Naruto noticed the state of his bandages, scratched and tattered. He began to tear at the fabric as all the birds reached a perch and watched him. He grumbled in annoyance at how much the cover had stuck to him. He removed most of it as the material covering his head got stuck, causing him to pull with all his might. He pulled it off and fell onto his butt, grunting as he looked up to see a bird eyeing him curiously. "You like this, don't you?" Caw was his reply when the bird pecked at his head. He complained something about the stupid birds as he stood up. He took a better look at his surroundings and suppressed a shiver. Some body parts of the dead captors and slaves were visible under the rocks. The ocean was all he could see for miles. The clouds and wind were picking up as Naruto looked into the distance for a ship. He shivered as a cold wind covered his body. He shivered as he stepped behind a large rock to protect himself from the current. He stood there, contemplating what had happened. The actions of the slave revolt began to repeat. He and Elsa start the revolution with brazen words and deeds. The long battles with the cursed wizards of the cult. Rob and Simon suffer injuries in their fight for freedom. And finally, Jelal. Driving her crazy and nearly killing him and Elsa with her magic. He looked up and saw a jailer with his cloak still around his broken neck. Naruto unbuttoned the buttons and tied him around himself, keeping him warm. Even the birds were screeching as they tried to find a safe place. He leaned against the rock as a feeling of hunger overwhelmed him and closed his eyes sleepily, thinking he'd start finding ways to survive until he found a way to save himself. Squawk 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 casquawk. The crow perched on the rubble was knocked down by a hard-thrown stone. Naruto moaned as he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, yawning as he shook his head. He got up and stretched, working his aching muscles. He kept his cloak wrapped around his neck so as to have equal protection from the wind and the sun. He stood up and examined his situation once more. Bodies, debris, waves, silence. Nothing had changed. Naruto walked over and started rummaging through the rubble, looking for anything that can help him even a little in this situation. So far he had found only a few bodies of the guards and slaves. Men and women who weren't so lucky in their escape attempt. Any slave he found would drag the body to the outer bank and leave it there, hoping a passing ship would spot them and come to investigate. Even if they died, they'd been through enough, deserving to be buried underground if they could. As for the slavers he encountered, he simply threw their bodies into a pill. In her eyes, it would always be the bastards who ruined their lives. He didn't care what happened to them. Or decaying. Or currently, bird feed. Whisper. Okay. Now what do I do? He wondered as he considered his options. He looked among the rocks and an idea came to him. I guess I should make a watch, he said as he collected pieces of rubble and began to pile them into a rugged-looking hill. The largest rocks she found she rolled towards the artificial perch. An hour later, Naruto had a decent look at the center of the island. Big enough to see all directions on the largest slabs of land. Naruto exhaled after finishing his work. Okay, now what's next? He looked around as a loud growl filled the silence. He looked down to see his belly literally vibrate as the wavy lines came out of his stomach. Naruto's sweat dripped as he thumped his belly, growling. Okay, I guess I should find something to eat. He laughed a little, but then lost his joy and looked around. But where? I had no idea what I was going to eat. There was no food like what they gave him in the tower. And it wasn't ideal with the idea of eating rocks. So that left him with the option of catching a bird. He looked at the carcasses he had captured. He suppressed a gag as he shook his head. No, absolutely not. I have to think about it. Naruto started sweating bullets at his situation. Then his eyes widened, realizing there might still be some food left for him. Naruto started climbing the stone slabs as he moved towards the general direction of the basement to the basement. All slaves knew that the jailers kept their rations and reserves in an enclosed space on the lower levels. Along with the food space were many more levels of bunkers that held other stuff. But no slave really knew what they had. Naruto arrived at the general area where he and his friends had seen those slavers talking just a few days ago. Naruto took several deep breaths as he found the basement space covered in rocks. The boy gritted his teeth in anger as he started throwing debris from the doors. Naruto spent hours paving the way for a stable food source. She began to tire from overwork, feeling weak from not eating for so long. Naruto was about to finish when he came to a much larger stone. He started to push against it, but the rock didn't move. Hey, damn it. Alright, now you're pushing it. He channeled some chakra into his hands as he pounded against the rock. After some effort, the rock began to slide through the wood, making loud crunching noises. And finally he moved. Ha ha ha, yeah. I did. Naruto started jumping in victory until he started staggering with hunger. Oh right, the food. He concentrated and grabbed the wooden handle, pulling with some force. After a moment, it finally opened and the door fell aside. Naruto smiled as he walked into the dark space. At first he couldn't see anything, but then he noticed that his eyes were getting used to the dark. Naruto looked at the remains of the slaver's food. Despite what he'd thought, the basement didn't come out unscathed. Part of the ceiling had crushed the preserves and water, reducing the amount she could eat. Naruto looked around to better see what he had to work with.
Well, that sucks. Naruto picked up some ruined meat that was left on the ground. He took a bite and chewed slowly. Gross. Still, really good. Naruto savored the taste of the old flesh as comic tears streamed down his face. He continued to bite into the steak until he reached his hands. Naruto rubbed his stomach in pleasure as he burped in satisfaction. Looked at the rest of the food. Some may not be in the best shape, but can't complain.
Naruto began to place his food on a rack that was closed off. He breathed in relief that at least he had something to eat and drink. Naruto wiped his head and looked at his stack. Okay, now I just have to set it aside for a while. I have to find a way to beat. What the hell? Naruto saw that there were two other cellars located much deeper in the darkness. He walked over to them and examined the doors. One had a lock while the other was freely accessible. He knew it would be easier to get into the one that was open, but his interest was piqued when he saw the lock. Naruto smiled as he reached out and pulled the door. His efforts were in vain. He exhaled and picked up a large rock at his feet. He lifted it over his head and continually broke the lock. Leave me. We will see each other. Tsunava, yes. The lock on the door broke and he fell to the floor. Naruto smiled and threw the stone aside. He opened the door and walked in, seeing random objects and clothes around him. What the hell? Naruto started looking around and looking for everything. There were elegant clothes and shoes, watches and lacrima. Everything that civilians would carry with them in their daily life. Naruto kept looking until he found something that piqued his interest. He pushed off the clothes and picked up the shoes. They were his sandals. The sandals he had been wearing for several years. They were worn and dusty from sitting in the dark. They were still tinged with red from all the assassination missions Danzo had sent him. Naruto inspected them and dropped them at his feet. He chuckled as he saw that his feet had gotten so much bigger than the boy's shoes he'd once worn. It was all he needed to prove he was grown up. He laughed as he slipped off his sandals and thumbed through the contraband of slaves. He found a new pair of boots to wear. They were black and muddy, proving they'd been through a lot. Naruto sat down on the concrete and pushed his feet through the crack. He adjusted them to make them more comfortable, slipping on them more easily. Naruto adjusted them and stood up, examining his new shoes. Hey, I like them. I'm keeping these. Naruto looked at the rest of the clothes and tried them on. After trying on a few new tops, he settled on a roomy black top that was too big for him. He put it on and ripped the bottom off, making it more snug. After a few tweaks, he managed to make it feel good. Now, let's see what else those bastards were hiding. Naruto peeked around the corner to the other door to the street. He approached him and noticed that he was no different from the others. He grabbed the handles and opened it, finding it easier than the other two. He watched the stairs descending into deep shadow. He walked down the steps and looked around the shaded area, noting that it was much larger than the others. It takes up most of the lower basement. As Naruto looked around, he lost a step and fell forward. Naruto cried out in pain as he fell down the stone steps, landing on the concrete floor. Uig. Shit, that hurts, this could have killed me, ha ha ha. Naruto chuckled as he lay on the ground, holding the back of his neck as he took a hit. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see a skull an inch from his face. Naruto was silent as a heavy weight fell on his stomach. Ah, go away. Don't kill me. He jumped back in fear at the skeleton lying in front of him. He took a deep breath as his heart raced, pounding with the sudden fear he'd felt. He eyed the sack of bones that lay there, preparing to make them move or jump. He waited in silence as nothing happened. He straightened up and coughed into her hand, an embarrassed blush spreading over his face. Fine, I'll keep it to myself. Naruto looked at the numerous skeletons scattered on the floor, dressed in men's and women's rags. Some of them were crawling towards the stairs, hoping to climb to freedom.
Others had swords pierced through their ribcages and backs, showing they had bled to death or had been stabbed to death. A horrible smell had taken over the ground around her, making her vomit. Naruto finally noticed two skeletons resting closer to the stairs, face up. He stared at them, noting the obvious ways they had died. One had its skull crushed and stabbed, dying instantly. The one next to him, dressed in the girlish skirt he'd seen for so long, had no skull at all.
He recognized them immediately as the slaves who had tried to escape last year. The man who had his head smashed in and the woman who had her head blown off. Naruto then realized where he was. This was the cemetery where the jailers unloaded the dying slaves. If they tried to escape or were on the verge of death, the guards would bring them here to rot. Naruto gritted his teeth in anger at the growing injustice he had discovered. How could they do such a thing? They had rights, didn't they? Naruto calmed down as he circled the bodies, noting all the states through which the poor had passed. Then he came upon a strange corpse that was unlike any other she had ever seen. It was the skeleton of a man with most of his rags torn and bloodied. They were so faded that he could tell they had been there for many years. His body was arched, as if he were lying on top of something. And it was upon a large piece of earth, like a sepulchre dug out of a reed. Naruto walked over to the body and touched it. Nothing resembling flesh was left on the bones. He turned his body to get a better view. In his arms was a large bundle of items, wrapped up in the rags Naruto assumed were his shirt. Naruto grabbed the items in his arms and tried to pull them out, finding it difficult because of the smile on his bones. After trying for some time, Naruto was able to pull the objects out of his arms. Naruto fumbled for items as he fell onto his butt. Naruto felt the metal crash to the ground and then settled down. He looked to his side to see two swords and an open book on the floor. Naruto walked over to the first leaf. It was a katana, with a stainless steel blade about a meter long. It had a gold guard on the oval-shaped grip. The hilt was jet black, engraved with gold diamonds every inch. Naruto held the sword in his hand, feeling a powerful presence from the sword even though he could tell it had no magical properties. Naruto swallowed hard as he toyed with it, feeling stronger just from holding the incredible spaceship. Naruto swung his sword several times and she could feel the air bend around him as he descended.
Naruto looked at it once more before carefully setting him down on the ground.
The blonde Jinchuriki headed for the second sword which fell. This was more of a traditional knight sword that he had heard of. It was about the same length as the first sword, but had a much greater width than the katana. Its blade was a dirty silver that had a long trench near the guard. The guard covered most of his hands and the stump at the end of the handle ensured it didn't slip out of his hands. He felt that the sword was heavier than the other, at least another 3 pounds compared to it. Though he wasn't able to swing it as fast, Naruto felt it could cut through harder metal when used by a master. He was in awe of the power these swords had, feeling that he could defeat an army with them.
Naruto placed both swords next to each other while admiring them. Whoever used them must have been a powerful swordsman. Naruto finally looked at the last object, a worn book lying on its last pages. Naruto slowly approached him and grabbed his spine, lifting it to see what was written on it. He noticed that the lines were jumbled and written in red, perhaps in blood. He looked at the letters to better understand their messy presentation. In my last moments, I want to say I'm sorry.
Naruto closed the book realizing he was reading the dead man's last will. He felt a shiver run up his spine at the idea of understanding the poor man's death. Naruto took a deep breath and looked up the stairs. He looked at the swords and decided to take them with him. He wrapped them in the same torn shirt he'd found them in. He lifted them under his arm and began the journey back to the surface. Before leaving, he looked at the book on the floor, feeling interested in knowing what this man had done. He picked it up and went back up the steps. Naruto came out of the basement and saw that it had started to get dark outside. He returned to the perch he had set up and sat down facing it. He looked over some rocks to see that birds had begun to eat the bodies. He knew he couldn't stop the feathered monsters from pecking at the bodies of slaves or jailers. So he let them have what they wanted. Naruto sat down on the ground as he wrapped himself in the cloak again. He sat on the ground as he watched the illumination given to him by the stars and the moon. Naruto couldn't sleep, so he looked at the book again. It was brown and looked like leather. It looked tough. But the edges were worn and rough, showing that dust had accumulated under the skeleton for some time. Naruto felt his curiosity glance at the writing he had seen on the back. What happened? Why was it in the blood? Naruto tried to fight but opened the book to the first page. Owner. Kazuya Sukumina. He saw that the lines were filled with very well done handwriting. Naruto leaned against the rocks and started reading. Date. X 750, August 7th. Age. 10. Well, this is my first entry. Today is my 10th birthday and Okawa-sama gave me this diary to document my life. I said it was a silly idea, but she said it was worth a try. That I have to have everything about me written down in a notebook so I'll never forget what I did. I think this will be the only time I'll write about it, but I can't argue with Okawa-sama. There's a reason Oto-sama is so afraid of him. And though he has reluctantly accepted this book, I'm much more excited about my second gift. I'm starting magic lessons which I can start tomorrow. I'm really excited, so I decided to go to bed right away. Good night. Naruto finished the first entry in the boy's diary. He had kept this book with him as a biography of what he had done. And from the state of the book's pages, he didn't go through with his, just this once, idea. Naruto continued to read the boy's life diary, finding it fascinating. Completely forgetting that he should be trying to fall asleep. It was night in Magnolia Town. The moon was shining all over town. The light illuminated the canal, making it glow across the street. He sat on the edge, his feet lightly touching the surface of the water. She knew she shouldn't have gone swimming, but the water was so cold on her feet she'd never felt anything like it. It was a completely different feeling for her feet to walk across. For the first time since she'd arrived unseen by anyone, she let a small smile adorn her face. Well, you seem to like water. The girl gasped slightly and lifted her feet out of the water, blushing slightly at being surprised. He turned to see the short man dressed in the brown coat he had become accustomed to wearing. He had his eyes closed and a smile on his face. Oh, master, it's only you. Sorry, I should. Nonsense Urza-chan, I won't tell anyone. Just have fun. The armored girl looked at the man who now had a warm grin on his face instead of a smile, nodded and put his feet down. You seem to like that armor a lot. You haven't taken it off since I gave it to you this morning. Oh yes, thank you master. This is a very generous gift you gave me. She laid her hands on the breastplate of her new armor. He had given her a selection of clothes to choose from a vast inventory he had. After giving her a white blouse and skirt, he said she could take anything else she wanted. She looked around and found this armor. He immediately liked it and used it right away. The little guildmaster sat beside her on the riverbed and relaxed into the night air. Are you sure you want to continue using it? The little girl felt a cold sweat run down her back as she clutched her chest. Why yes, I feel better if I'm covered. I feel protected. Makarov looked concerned at the new girl as she shivered slightly, remembering what she had told him yesterday, about the tower and about her rob about her. He kept his expression strong, but he felt sick at the thought of what the girl had been through. Sorry, I didn't want to remind you. Not well. I can't forget where I'm from. Everyone who got lost and helped me along the way. She silently remembered her grandfather, her friends and family, and her best friend who had saved her by pushing her away. His sacrifice cannot be forgotten. Makarov saw how the girl quickly broke down and became sadder. She felt her heart sink at the thought of her new daughter that she felt distressed. So she took a deep breath and leaned back on the backs of her hands. You know, I don't think you should ever give up. Urza looked beside her at the holy wizard. If your friends were that worried about you, they'd want to make sure you were happy. And they'd want to be with you to witness your newfound happiness. So instead of thinking that all of them have given up their lives, she hopes they're just around the corner. Because even if we have to work towards our dreams, hope makes them easier to achieve. So don't be afraid and wait. He looked at her and gave her a toothy smile, causing her lines to gather on the side of her face. Urza looked at him and felt a tear well up in her eyes. This man was like a combination of Rob and Naruto. He had so much wisdom to give, but he made sure she never lost the will to carry on. He wiped away the tears and nodded in agreement. They sat there, enjoying the night sky in silence. Hey, I want to see me put my feet on the bottom. Makarov, it's too deep. If you try, you can. Wow. The old man jumped up from his seat and his feet immediately stretched out immensely, surprising the scarlet-haired girl. He began to show her his Titan magic as she encouraged him to continue. Naruto woke up to the sound of waves crashing on the shore. He sat down and rubbed his eyes to wake up. There were no sounds of birds screeching and waking you up, so that was a plus. Naruto looked to his side to see the book he had read late the night before. Naruto was quickly fond of reading the annotations that Kazuya had inserted in the book of him. He had read about his magical training from various teachers of magic, on the basic knowledge of magic and its history. And Kazuya had written everything down because there were so many notes, and he also helped Naruto better understand his magical state than him. He had learned that magic is the physical embodiment of the spirit. When the physical spirit of an organism connects with the spiritual flow of nature, the spirit forms magic as a product of the connection. And that he could access his magic by imagining an invisible force appearing around him was similar to using chakra, but it was quicker to use because he didn't have to merge spiritual and physical energies. But while he could access his magic, it didn't do much to help him use it. Then Naruto continued to read what Kazuya had done then. He opened where he left off and continued. Date: X750, November 15th, age 10. Now I've finally started learning a spell. When asked what kind of magic I was interested in, I said I've been interested in swords for a while. I told my teachers about all the books and stories I had read about famous swords and weapons used throughout the ages. Blades that could gather magic and transform its use. Also swords that were said to help slay dragons. I was fascinated by the idea of owning such legendary swords, but was told that the weapons were so rare as to be off limits to the public, and only the filthy rich and thieves could get their hands on it. So I asked if there was a way to get the blades without running into problems. At first they said nothing, but then the old wizard told me about a special form of copy magic. He had read that the most common magical copy was able to briefly copy his own magical abilities before switching to another's, but he told me there was a way you could use your magic to copy other things by touching them. That using copy magic to leave an imprint of something's existence on you would allow you to summon it at any time. A combination type of caster and holder type magic. Naruto raised an eyebrow in surprise at what he had read. Using your magic to permanently copy something in your magic pattern. So you didn't have to hold an item, but you could make an exact copy of it just by touching it. Naruto laughed at the concept. If he had found a weapon that could destroy anything, he could have made copies, sent them and become famous. That would show Urza who's boss. Naruto continued to read about how Kazuya learned magical style. He had written that the basis of the magic was that he had to let his magic cover the chosen object. Let it dissolve and form around the blade, becoming part of it. Then she could let it go and keep a copy with her at any time. All he had to do was let his magic take the form of what he'd copied. Naruto has read that Kazuya had a lot of problems in the beginning with this new form of magic. Chee tried several times to master the training well until he could do it easily. Naruto had read that it took almost a year for him to make the sensation second nature. Naruto looked from the book at the blades he had picked up. He was annoyed when the idea took shape. Okay, it's not that hard. Let's see if it's as hard as he said. Naruto reached over and picked up the katana, holding it tightly. He started to take a deep breath as he followed what Kazuya said was the standard way to use it. Let your body relax as you let the magic flow over the weapon. Let the magic take control and cover your weapon. Naruto felt a warm sensation cover his body and felt the sword burn in his power. Naruto kept his composure as he began to flex his other hand, a shape taking shape in his palm. A sword handle had been created by him magic and had begun to grow from there. Naruto smiled as he felt the end of his magic from himself. He opened his eyes and lifted the new sheet. I did it.
Upon the second examination, Naruto realized that his new sword was crap.
It was barely half a foot long and the metal was cracked and scratched. Naruto's sweat dropped as he worriedly looked at the makeshift knife.
Well, it's not presentation but quality. That's what Rob Jichin said. Naruto chuckled nervously as he regained his confidence and showed off his new copy of the sword. He saw a medium-sized rock next to his foot, which would have been perfect for a test. Naruto picked it up with one hand and readied himself. He tossed the stone into the air and timed it perfectly. Just as the rock has returned to the ground, Naruto swung his knife and made contact with the stone. Say-oh.
Break. Naruto felt his confidence slip as the metal shards hit the ground. He looked down as the metal dissolved and vanished as if by magic. His eyes were darkened as he looked at the broken hilt. She prodded him angrily as everything crumbled to dust. Naruto started kicking the ground in a fit of rage as he realized his attempt had failed. The boulder hadn't even moved on its way down, but had simply smashed the sword's replica. Damn. I have to try again. Naruto continued to take the sword and made a copy, the copy materializing in his other hand. Each time the sword was still a poor imitation, but it had little improvement over the previous copy. Naruto rehearsed for many hours as he began to tire from the effort. Oh right, Kazuya said it in his diary. The more magic you use, the more tired you get. What did he say to fix it? Naruto took the diary and found the magical background page. Okay. I will relax and eat something. I forgot to eat while exercising. Naruto walked over to his food group and picked up some fruit to eat. He had started turning brown, but when you're stranded on an island, you have to live with it. Naruto returned to his position after also getting some water to drink. He reopened the diary and continued reading. What could I say? A good story captured him. Gray was sitting at the table with Kana again, looking at the new girl. She had been feeling very lonely since she arrived. She only talked to Ji-san and ate alone. Even now she was sitting on a barrel and eating some bread and water. Peeved. What's wrong with him? She is always alone, as if she is better than us. Hey, Kana, go talk to her or something. The card magic girl looked at him with a tired expression. Well, I tried, but she just ignored me. The stripper stood up with a cocky smile and slammed her fist on his hand. Well, we can't afford that. I may have to teach that rookie how to respect the great Gray-sama. Since when are you cool? Gray approached the seated ex-slave and tried to get her attention. Hey you. The girl just tried to ignore him as her gaze changed. The boy became angry when his patience ran out. He lifted his leg and kicked the stool out from under her, knocking her to the floor. The noise had alerted the rest of the guild, seeing that the two disagreed. What was it for? He asked from the ground. This is a wizard's guild. You don't go in armor around here. Well, I'll take that into consideration when you start wearing the clothes. She stroked her skirt as Gray flushed in accusation, the entire guild laughing at the burn the new girl had given her. Because you are small. Gray walked around her and pointed a finger at her in defiance. I'd like to see you so funny when I kick your ass. I don't wish to fight you. She met Gray's gaze as he confidently stood up. But if you wish, then come to me. You'll be sorry, armor girl. He held his fist in his palm as the magic began to build in his hands. A chill wind blew up as he moved into his position.
Made of ice, land, cloud. The entire guild looked surprised when the girl punched him in the head. The boy crashed to the wooden floor as his head smoked and his eyes rolled. He stood there with a smoking fist as silence gathered around him. Kana slowly got up from the bench and walked towards them. He dropped to his knees and punched Gray in the face, hoping to get that reaction. Having received nothing, he stood up and coughed into his fist.
The winner. Elsa. The guild cheered in recognition. Asterisk gasp gasp, they were almost there. A little more. Naruto had his hands resting on his knees as sweat trickled down his face. He'd been practicing copy magic for more than a week, forgetting his circumstances and the need to eat to keep controlling the new magic. He'd spent hours working on copies of the two swords, switching between them so he could test their mettle. The results of using so much magic were evident from the area around him. Dozens and dozens of half-completed swords and hafts lying on the sand. Unlike the first few times, the results didn't turn to dust when dropped. Then when you started making stronger copies, the final results would sit there until destroyed by other means. He looked at the original sheets a few meters from where he was. He got up as high as he could and got ready. Okay, same course. Naruto took a deep breath to calm his body, letting his magic flow over him. He opened his palms as the familiar sensation began to build again. He felt his handles begin to form as her hands gripped them. He held out his arms as the rest of the swords began to take shape. After a moment, he knew that his magic had done the job. He opened his eyes and looked at the results. In his right hand was a stout knight's sword, the setting sun shining on the iron blade, and on his left there was the katana, the radiant power and the grace of his excellent work. He raised his arms and brought them in a high arc, and then she dropped them on a big chunk of rock next to him. The blades collided with the stone and created a strong impact, but none of them broke. Swords clinked in her hands as he held them tightly. He smiled at the result. He had copied two swords. For the first time after so many attempts, he had succeeded. Yes. Naruto jumped for joy as he started to dance like an idiot, avoiding the loose parts of the sword around him. After celebrating for a while, Naruto smiled as he set his new swords aside, beaming with pride. Then he calmed down because he knew he had only partially finished the training session. He reached out and took the newspaper he had read so much. He reopened the page he'd found earlier in the week about a different kind of magic. The process and skills were written by Kazuya. He said he was so impressed that he asked her to write down what he knew. So once again Naruto let his magic take over. But instead of creating a form of memory, he just started building and compressing himself around it. His new magical style.
Knight Armor. Date. X759, June 9th. Age, 19. It had been about a year since I left home and became a freelance magician. I've been thinking about joining a guild, but I feel I can help more if I can travel freely.
Today was, well, it's best described as gangbang. I was hired by a small town to help control a bandit problem they had. The bandits had continued to emerge from their mountain hideout and terrorize the people. When I arrived and rendered my services to them, they immediately asked me for help and pointed me in the direction. When I arrived, it was a large tavern that had been taken over by dozens of criminals. Everyone accused me, but I was able to stop them easily enough. I had no trouble beating them when summoning swords with my X-prank. I guess that's the result of my training, huh? I was solving the problem easily enough until I met someone who stopped my swing. She had long red hair and purple eyes. He looked contemptuously into my eyes. I thought it was because he had defeated his comrades. I continued to attack her but found my strikes to no avail. I felt that every time my swords met their fists, their hands turned to steel and stopped them. And when he started to attack me, his punches left craters where he had punched. He had never met such a strong woman. We fought for hours and reduced the inn to rubble, chasing away the criminals. So okay, I guess I've technically got the job done. After a while, we had taken a break from fighting. I asked her why she joined these guys, but she looked at me like I was crazy. Then she asked me the same question. I told him I was sent from the city to stop these criminals. He started yelling and pointing at me like I was a fool. It turns out that she was hired to do the same task from a nearby city, and that we had wasted hours arguing just because of a misunderstanding. Needless to say, I was embarrassed. Then we continued to talk about our magic. He told me his magic was a kind of enhancement magic that covered his entire body. Instead of gaining muscle mass or something, it creates a cover over the body, like armor. The more skilled and powerful you become, the stronger you can make the armor. When he hit a wall and collapsed, I asked him if he was using it at the time. She said she didn't have to wear it all the time anymore. Apparently, she used a method to stop using it to get stronger.
He would use less and less to complete his quests and missions, so his body could strengthen and not rely on the ability of the armor, as a form of adaptability. I was surprised by the concept and asked him to explain more, but we didn't have time. So enough, the Rune Knights had started attacking us due to us causing such a ruckus. We had eloped and separated. I asked her what her name was before she left so I could see her again. Erika Soko.
Hey. Hope to meet you again. Date. X760, March 20th. Age, 20. So, it's been about 6 months since Erika and I formed a team, and apparently we had become famous in the area. All of them have come to us with their own magical problems and needs. It's fun to have so many missions to tackle. Erika started teaching me the basics of her knight's armor magic. I asked her if she wanted to learn my magical copy, but she said she wasn't the type to use so many blades. She was at ease with her only with the sword at her side.
However, I find this style more difficult to use than my magic. Apparently, it's hard to learn many other styles of magic after using one for so long. It's embarrassing to see her laughing at me when I can't even form the cover. Even with your explanation that she says, even a small child can learn. I think he's just saying that to annoy me.
Magic is based on a very simple idea. The basic thought that magic can be used to strengthen the body. I just have to let my magic gather around my body like a cocoon. Then, when I have enough eternal around me, I contract it to an almost skin-like level. Compressed pure magic should increase your base power by at least a factor of 2. Erika laughs at me and says hers makes her almost 10 times stronger. 15x if you pour everything into the armor. I mean, I hate it when she does that, but it's nice to know I can make her laugh. She doesn't do it very often, so it's funny to see her laugh like that. I think I'll take her on a date at the village restaurant down the road to see if she likes being in the laughing position. She looks how much he likes her. Huh. Naruto laughed at how Kazuya was slowly falling in love with Erika. How he had started writing more and more about her and less about her missions. In fact, she had started writing less in general. Finding out that some entries were days or months apart. He should have made sure that never happened to him. Naruto shook his head quickly and refocused on the task at hand. Like his magical counterpart, he has let his magic ebb and flow. But instead of letting it form an object, it stopped it and compressed it around itself. He felt his body warm as the magic lingered very close to his skin, changing its shape to fit around his fists. Naruto turned and looked at a large rock wall that he was practicing on. He walked up to him and got into a fist-fighting stance. He pulled her fist back and slammed into the solid wall, feeling a painful sensation shoot up her arm. He withdrew his fist and saw that a small crack had appeared where he had struck.
Not big enough to change the structure, but big enough to know he was stronger with the armor on. He smiled and let the magical energy dissipate from his body. He stumbled a little because he was dizzy. Oh shit, I have to sit down. Hee. I keep spending so much time learning this stuff that I forget I'm hungry. Naruto walked over to his pile of shrunken food that he had started to go bad. He picked up some moldy bread and sat down to regain his strength.
Naruto had once again taken Kazuya's diary, his only defense against talking his head off and naming a rock Wilson. He opened the page he had left last night. He had gone far in the copy Mage stories, more than half the length of the book.
He'd read about how the man had traveled, met a girl, teamed up, and fallen in love.
And last night a very important event had happened in his life, his marriage. Naruto looked at a small photo that had been placed on the pages of the book. It showed a tall man with black hair and a big smile in a tuxedo. Naruto had never seen the man before, but he was sure he was the happiest he'd ever been. Beside him was a shorter woman with red hair down to her waist in a wedding dress. She was holding a bouquet of flowers and was hugging the man so hard she could have made him pop. Naruto smiled at the happiness the two had shared together, wondering if he would ever be able to have something like this with anyone. As Naruto looked at the written stories, he realized that it had been several years since he had written about the wedding, and that each successive voice was ragged and jittery, as if he was scared and panicked. Naruto looked at the last article he had written. Date: X765, March 8th. Age: 25. Oh God, Erika told me to calm down, but I can't help it. Somehow, she's more calm and collected than I am about this. This is bullshit. If anyone should be afraid, it's her. It's the one with the baby. But no, he just sits on the couch, reading books like it's just another day for her. That wasn't the case when we found out 8 months ago. No, I was banging my head against the wall when she thought I called her fat. In addition to her desires, I've never seen her eat so much pickle pie and steak. And she cried when she saw that her plate was finished. But somehow, now I'm the one terrified. I feel my hair falling out as I speak. But you know, it's fun to wait for the result. She told me she had looked the gender's baby at the doctor when I wasn't looking. It will be a girl. I was shocked when I first heard it, but then I got excited. In a month I will be a father. Can't wait to see how she grows. I will make sure she is beautiful and strong, and I will keep her safe at all costs. I want to see her become a woman and find a happy life. But she will kill anyone who looks at her. It's not a joke.
And finally, after several months of discussions, we finally agreed on a name. We couldn't think of anything for so long, but then Erika had a great idea. She got the idea of taking some of our names from a kind woman she met in a village. So now I have a name for my son. My daughter. Urza. TCH. Damnation. The ice machine brushed lightly against his bruised cheek, his face black and blue from taking so many beatings from the annoying girl in armor. Haha. How's Gray? Urza kicked your ass again, huh? A blue-haired wizard with a dry, spiky look laughed at the embarrassed alchemist boy. Fuck you, asshole.
The older wizards just laughed at his attempt to stay tough. One pumped-up smoker just chuckled as he took another sip of his drink. But seriously, that Urza-chan is awesome. She's only been here a few weeks, but she beat Gray across town. We'll probably call her Urza-sama in a few years. The adults laughed again before a loud crash was heard behind them. Gray had pounded the table angrily. His teeth were clenched together and a vein throbbed in his neck.
I never accept that girl as our nakama. He got up and left the guild in search of his sign. Gray ran through the city, looking for the scarlet-haired girl in armor. After an hour of searching, He finally found her sitting on the river bank. Her knees were drawn up to her chest and she seemed to be looking out at the water. She smiled as he walked down the hill towards the girl. I found you, Urza. Today I will defeat you. He turned and Gray stopped immediately.
She looked at him surprised, with tears in her eyes. Gray's stomach nodded as he wiped his eye with his sleeve. Oh, it's you again. Okay, let's go. He didn't move. Well, are you coming? Do you give up? Gray felt nervous as he suddenly felt like a bully. Hey, why are you always alone? She looked surprised as he looked down. I feel more comfortable alone. I get nervous around other people. So I like being alone. Is that why you cry? She looked at him in shock when he looked at her. He walked over to her and sat cross-legged. If I'm here you can't cry, can you? She gave him a sweet smile as she sat next to him. They sat in silence, looking at the river. Hey. She looked at him because he had a pink hue. I'm sorry, I was a jerk. Oh, that's fine. You remind me of a friend of mine. XXXXXX, Urza. His eyes were wide open and her pulse quickened. Her hands trembled as the book began to adjust itself. This was his father. He had been reading about his father's life for weeks. He was studying the magic he and his mother were using. At that thought he had felt a moment of excitement. But then, she realized what it all meant. They were dead. That body he found was probably Kazuya's when he died. Those swords he had used were probably keepsakes they had. Naruto felt a sense of dread wash over him as the thought hit him completely. He couldn't help her find her parents. What was I supposed to do? How was I going to tell her? How would she take it? After a moment of concern, he remembered what was the first thing she had read in the book. He looked at the last few pages and saw dried blood staining the outside. He swallowed calmly as he turned to see the message written in blood. In my last moments, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry I haven't been able to help my beloved and beautiful daughter. All I can do for her now is make sure he sleeps in a grave instead of rotting here. And I can only hope the old man can take care of her. We could only grab our swords in this book before they attacked us. We thought we could save everyone, but I was crazy for it. Now I won't be able to see my daughter again and I. Naruto saw smudges beyond the words. He thought Kazuya must have shed a few tears while writing this. I couldn't blame him. He couldn't go on either. If you ever find it, please give it to my daughter Urza. Along with the swords my wife and I made. Excalibur and Kusanagi. That's all I can give you now. In my last moments. I can only regret. Not for my actions nor for fear of death, but that I left my daughter as I bled to death. Urza, if you ever see him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see you become the beautiful girl I knew you would be. I'm sorry I can't be there for you when you were feeling scared or lonely. If I could, I would have spent my last moments with you. Just remember, no matter where you are or if you'll never know, we'll be with you. Always. Watching you grow into who you want to be. Your mother and I loved you more than anything, and even now. I love you, my precious daughter. Elsa nothing. That's all. It was over, his last message written in blood as his wounds gripped him. The last thing he'd done was give a message to the daughter he'd tried to save. Naruto couldn't describe what he felt. Fear. Anger. Compassion. That was the best he could say. Naruto sat in silence as the wind and waves kept moving. He rolled his eyes because he didn't know how long it would be before he stood up. She started back to the basement doors. He found his way to the farthest gate, the cemetery gate. He walked down the steps and into the darkness, trampling the ground. He walked last among the skeletons and rocks and made his way to the lying skeleton. This was her last post. Kazuya's final resting places as he felt the hand of death reach out to him. Below him was the grave she had dug for Erika as she slowly died. Naruto stared at the bones for a while before falling to his knees and burying his hands in the dirt. The earth shook as he continued to dig for hours, the moon rising over the surface. Naruto felt his hands tear as he dug in, not caring for the pain as he concentrated on his task.
He reached the bottom as he wiped his forehead, covering it with dirt. He stood up and picked up the skeleton with a careful grip. He lowered the bones to the bottom as he walked out. He pushed the earth again as his eyes showed no emotion.
He finished as he stroked the dirt. He stood up and bowed before the graves. By showing their appreciation for what they had done for him, even if they hadn't done it directly. He walked back up the steps and came to the same rubble he had called home for weeks. He measured the wall he had scratched earlier and charged his magic into it. Feeling that a new purpose fills you. He pulled his fist back and hit the wall again without success. But instead of backing away, Naruto struck with his other hand as he began to punch the wall. Their fists connected as the skin began to crack, blood staining the stone. But he didn't stop, he kept throwing punches as his emotions began to flare up. And the wall began to crack. Rob G. Chan. Smash asterisk. Karama. Asterisk Aplasta asterisk, Jelal. Smash, Miliana. Sia. Simon. Wally, smash smash asterisk. Kata 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 kata, Urza. I will never lose anyone again. I will protect everyone I care about and never let them die. I will become strong. The strongest. I will never be weak again. Destroy the wall collapsed to pieces as his fist went through it. The crash of stones around her as he took a deep breath, blood dripping from her hands. He looked at the rocks around him. I had to do more. He needed to get stronger than that. He looked around at all the rocks that towered above him. He clenched his fists as he shifted into another position. Great. More practice. Hum. The pink-haired old woman mumbled as she looked at the scarlet girl with a patch over her eye, rubbing her chin as she inspected the empty socket. That wound you have there is bad. It won't be easy to fix. Oh come on, said the dwarf master as he stepped beside the flustered girl. She has such a pretty face, it would be a shame if she hid it.
Yes, I guess you're right, which reminds me. She bent down and grabbed the old wizard's ear as he screamed in pain. I don't want to see you flirt with her again when she grows up. Got it. I wouldn't want to try some new supplies that I've found cause impotence.
Oh of CC of course. Makarov unconsciously covered his buttocks. Where is he from? Rob sent it apparently. Our Rob. Where is he then?
She said he thinks he's dead. Perliuzuka looked at the frightened girl as she looked down in concern. He let his eyes soften as he worried for the girl. He walked over to the door of his tree and beckoned them inside. When they entered, he asked Elsa to sit on the stool while he examined her. She looked at her eyes so he could guess the color of her eyes. Dark forest brown. I'll prepare your new eye, so wait there.
Urza watched the old woman as she worked, the master laughing in the background. As she got excited about having a new eye, she thought of something. Wait. The medical advisor looked at the girl. Yes?
I don't want a brown eye. The older woman looked at her in surprise. I wish it was light blue, please.
She looked at Urza and then at Makarov. He was surprised, but shrugged at her request. After a few hours, Urza was taking off her blindfold. She kept her eyes closed because she still didn't want to see the result. Here, the pink-haired woman handed her a mirror so she could look at herself. I don't know why, but I think I picked the right color. Urza's eyes widened as she looked at herself in the mirror. The left one was brown and the right one was blue. The same as her best friend but on different fronts. She felt joy flood her as tears began to flow from her left eye. She is healed. Yes, then you can go now. I hate humans and can't stand them here. So you can leave. What? Oh no, your eye. I thought I fixed it. What have I done? No, it's not good. The older fairy tale members looked at her in confusion. I don't need to cry for them anymore. I just wanted to mention that I now have this eye. But Urza-chan, why didn't you adjust your eye to match the missing one? Because master, I've never lost my eye. She looked at him and smiled. I just gave it to someone else.
Aw shit, I'm almost out of food. A heterochromic boy with two swords strapped to his back moaned as he looked at the undercooked steak, rotten apple, and water bag in his hand. He scratched his head as he thought about the situation he was in. No ships had found it in the last month and he was running low on supplies.
Maybe I should see if these rocks can float, or I could use the bodies to harvest birds and use them to carry me home. He nodded as he froze and began drawing in the dirt. God, I'm an idiot. He stretched as the swords on his back jangled. He had promised their graves that no one else would use those swords.
He would take them with her along with the diary to give to Urza. Maybe I could swim. But how far is it? He looked out to sea as she stood on the rubble and dust, nothing left of the huge slabs that once stood there. He kept looking around seeing nothing. Until a ship in the distance. Get close to the island while there. Hey. Naruto jumped with excitement and waved his hands like crazy, trying to get the sailors' attention as they approached. I'm here. Please come see me.
He reached the shore and continued to make a show. He saw that the ship was definitely coming towards him, so he calmed down and laughed. Now I was safe. I was about to be saved. Naruto continued to laugh as he saw several lights shining on the wooden ship. He cut short her glee when she heard loud, sweeping noises approaching. Boom! The seat next to him exploded, knocking him to the floor. He fumbled in the sand as he began to run closer to the center of the old tower formation. They were shooting at him, trying to kill him for some reason. Why? I had to survive. He had to see Urza and all again. He couldn't tell. Boom! The ship landed as the anchors dropped on the beach. Rope ladders descended sideways as two clothed soldiers crossed the arena. Then why are we here again?
Because Master Brain is sending that strange blue-haired boy back here and we need to make sure everything is clear. But I didn't think there would be any survivors of last month's destruction.
They approached a smoking corpse. On his face, when half of his body was gone, debris and dirt had formed large hills around where the blasts had hit. Good, there are no more survivors. Yes, poor boy. He was probably hoping we could save him, but hey. He bent down and grabbed the boy's corpse for a better look. Let's see what. She turned it around to see the half-decayed corpse of an older man. His torso had been eaten by birds and his face had rotted away. The soldier released the man while he dried his hands. Ew, what the hell? He was already dead. Where's the boy? They both looked around trying to find the little boy they had seen on the shore. One of them turned around when he heard some rocks move. Turning around, he saw that a blond boy with a mustache had jumped off a pile of rocks. His two-toned eyes flashed in anger as his fist was pulled all the way back. Hey! Say oh! Naruto struck the man with all of his increased strength from the knight's armor. The man felt his face bend around the boy's fist as he was slowly pushed back. And then, he was thrown backwards at great speed as his body crashed into the piles of rock. What? Before the second soldier could finish his question, he felt his feet being ripped out from under him. He looked down to see the boy pulling his foot back. He released it when his foot bumped between the man's lungs and colon. The man spat blood as his body flew several feet through the air, flying like a rag doll. Naruto calmed down as he wiped the dirt from his shirt and pants.
He made sure his swords were still on his back and the book in his shirt. He ran towards the ship which still had the stairs down. He ran towards them as he vaulted over the railing and leapt onto the deck. He crouched when he saw several soldiers looking at him in surprise. He got up smiling. Hello, assholes. I tried a new spell, but didn't get a chance to use it. So, he summoned Excalibur in his left hand and Kusanagi in his right. Do you want to see where it will take us?
Hit. Naruto leapt onto the deck and lunged forward, cutting 3 men in his path. As they backed away, he felt murderous intent heading towards him as a magical fireball was shot at him. He lifted his legs and leapt over the explosion, landing on some boxes. He turned to watch some men coming towards him, brandishing clubs and swords at him. He loosened his grip on Excalibur and sent it flying, the blade striking a man's shoulder. Naruto jumped on the staff swing and landed right on her bow, preventing her from moving. He kicked the man in the face as he dodged another fireball. He leapt out of the box and ran around the ship, chopping off the tops of the mast as he did so. Wherever he ran, soldiers cast spells at the ship, damaging it further. And any man he met would cut his legs off with Kusanagi. After a while, Naruto saw that he had done the right thing by ruining the warship. He looked up and saw a rowboat supported by pulleys and ropes. He smiled as he dodged another explosion. He kicked another box which collided with a soldier, knocking him to the ground. Naruto ran to the railing and cut the ropes holding the small boat, causing it to fall into the water. Naruto leapt to his feet and landed on the boat, swaying under his weight. Thank you, bastards. I will always be in your debt. He gave them the bird as he leapt out of the boat and applied his armor magic. He grabbed the back and started kicking, making the boat go faster as he pushed. The water exploded behind him as the men in the boat continued to try to attack him. But as they tried, they lost sight of him. Damnation. We have to go back to shore and get him. The ship's mast continued to burn as it fell into the ocean. Shit. Yes. I did it. The mustachioed boy lay down on his back as the boat rocked in the waves. He laughed out loud as his body dripped from the seawater. Hee hee. Now, I just hope the waves can do the rest. I'm so tired. Naruto chuckled as he placed his hands behind his head, looking up at the stars. As he did so, he saw that it was the first time he had seen the stars so clearly, and then it hit him. He was free. He wasn't in a cell at the end of a city, or in a tower to work, and he wasn't stuck on an island waiting to be rescued. He was finally free. As the feeling he'd craved all his life slowly poured over him, a tear fell from both eyes. He had a huge smile as he looked up at the stars. Is this the freedom you were talking about, Kurama? I like it already. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast. Thanks for listening to the video. Hope you did enjoy this part of the story, and if you did, like and subscribe for more. And thank you all for your humble support, and have a great day.